Namaskar. Now I will talk about the second part of the occurrence of the groundwater. In first part, I have covered about the origin of the groundwater, residence time of the groundwater, hydrogeological classification of rocks, vertical distribution, types of aquifers, soil classification. In second part, I will tell you about the groundwater basin, hydrologic properties of the rocks, springs and hydrothermal phenomena. So, I have told you about the aquifers. In groundwater, aquifers are very important. They are the geological formation which give the groundwater to a well. So, now I can give you example of these terms which I have given to you about the aquifer, aquiclude, aquifuse and aquitard. Now you think that aquifer can be compared with a rich man which behave lot of money. From rich man you can get money, he can give money without any hesitation because he has lot of money with him. Aquifuse is a poor man. He has no money, so there is no question arises to give them money. That is it. Now, aquiclude is a miser man. He has money, but he will not give. So, I have given example of aquiclude, sandy clay. It contains water, but it will not give sufficient quantity of water to a well. And aquitard. Aquitard is a person which are neither rich, neither nor miser. You can say if you press him, you can threaten him, he will give some water. So, that is the example of the aquitard. Groundwater basin is a huge aquifer, or so many aquifers are interconnected to each other that form the groundwater basin. So, there is a surface basin in mountain region, there is a valley plain, there is no necessary that groundwater basin is coincide with the surface basin, surface drainage basin. A groundwater basin is a groundwater reservoir, you can say. Reservoir means this contains huge aquifers. So, to ensure the groundwater availability continuous, groundwater management should be done by basin wise, right. So, this is about the groundwater basin. Now, very important things, hydrologic properties of the rocks. Hydrologic properties of the rocks are the property which tell about the availability of the groundwater, supply of the groundwater, supply will be more, or these are the characteristics of a aquifer. Hydrologic properties of the rocks are the property which tell about the availability of the groundwater, supply of the groundwater, supply will be more, or these are the characteristics of a aquifer. What are these? Hydrologic properties include number 1 porosity, number 2 permeability, number 3 hydraulic conductivity, number 4 transmissivity or coefficient of transmissibility, number 5 coefficient of storage or storativity, number 7 specific yield, and 8th is the specific retention. These are the important hydrologic properties of the rocks, and we will define each and every property. Now, first we will consider the porosity. What is porosity? Porosity is the property which are responsible for the water holding capacity or capability of the rock. If porosity is not there, water cannot hold in the rock. So, what it is? It is a measure of pores, voids or spaces or openings of the rock. The portion of rock which is not occupied by solid is filled with the groundwater. So, there are two types of porosity, primary porosity and the secondary porosity. Primary porosity are those which are formed during the formation of the rock. For example, vesicles in the rock, alluvial formation, deposition of the sand layer, clay layer, gravel, all these things. This is the example of the primary. So, sedimentary rocks have the primary porosity, and primary, wherever you will get the primary porosity in the rock, that will be a very good aquifer, or that will be a very good groundwater reservoir, or that will be a very good water bearing formation. Now, secondary porosity you will find in the hard rock, igneous rock and metamorphic rock. After the formation of the rocks, for example, joints, cracks, fissures, they are developed. If rock is subjected to tectonic activity, faults will be created, joints will be created. So, these are the openings after the formation of rock. So, these are known as secondary porosity. So, in rocks which have secondary porosity, you will get less quantity of the water. Less quantity of water you will get if your rock has the secondary porosity. So, now porosity also divided according to their size of the pores, size of the voids. Capillary porosity, supercapillary and subcapillary. Capillary pores are small, in which water is held by the surface tension forces. Supercapillary are larger than the capillary, and subcapillary are those in which water is held by the adhesive forces. So, how we will determine porosity? Porosity is the ratio of volume of pores to the total volume of rock, and because it is expressed in percentage, so it is multiplied by 100. Porosity is expressed in percentage. Porosity is denoted by the letter alpha. Now, there is a diagram given here which shows the relation of porosity with their texture of the rocks. Now, here 6 figures are given. You see, if you observe this figure, if you take a glance at this figure, you will find that in first figure, sediments are well rounded, it has got very high porosity. In second figure, if you see, bells are sub-rounded, less porosity. In third figure, you see sediments are very well sorted and they are themselves porous. So, it has got very high porosity. In the fourth diagram, you will see pores are angular and their pores are, the space between pores are filled with the mineral matter, so their porosity is reduced. Fifth figure shows solution rendered by the fracturing and due to the solution activity. So, it is secondary porosity which is created. So, this diagram is given by the Menger in 1923. It is very good for understanding the porosity. Another term is here used, that is effective porosity. What is effective porosity? What is the difference between the porosity and effective porosity? Effective porosity are that those amount of pores which are interconnected to each other, and this effective porosity is responsible for the transmission of the water from a rock. So, effective porosity is included in the porosity, but it is the amount of interconnected pores. We will call it effective porosity, and that effective porosity is related to the this is a specific yield which is responsible for the giving the water to a well. Now, next thing, now porosity is decreases with the depth increases. So, at the greater depth porosity will be reduced. Permeability is the measure of transmitting of the water. It is a property which measure the transmission of the water. It should be distinguished from the hydraulic conductivity. Boys are confused between the permeability and hydraulic conductivity. No doubt that both are the rate of the flow, rate of the groundwater flow, but I will tell you permeability is the property of the medium through which groundwater moves, and hydraulic conductivity is the property of the fluid. It means it is maybe oil or it may be water. So, there is a relationship of the intrinsic permeability, it is denoted by the letter small k. Hydraulic conductivity is denoted by capital K. So, small k equal to capital K mu upon rho g, where small k is the permeability, capital K is the hydraulic conductivity, mu is the dynamic viscosity, rho is the fluid density, and g is the acceleration of gravity. So, if you see this formula, the unit of permeability comes meter square, or it is the unit of the area. So, unit of area is small. So, US Geological Survey reported permeability in square micrometer. 1 square micrometer equal to 10 to the power minus 12 meter square. And in petroleum industry, this permeability is denoted by the Darcy. So, 1 Darcy equal to 0.987 micrometer square. This is the relationship between the small k and the Darcy. So, this is about the permeability. Next property is the hydraulic conductivity. Hydraulic conductivity, I have told you, it is the property of the fluid or water or oil. A medium has a unit hydraulic conductivity if it will transmit in unit time a unit volume of water from a unit cross sectional area of the aquifer under kinematic viscosity measured perpendicular to the ground flow under a unit hydraulic gradient. You remember, this is the fourth property is the transmissibility of the water. It is also known as coefficient of the transmissibility. There is a relationship between the transmissibility. It is denoted by letter capital T. So, capital T equal to K into B small b, capital K into small b is the thickness of the aquifer. So, if you find difference here in hydraulic conductivity and transmittivity, that water which flows from a unit surface area in hydraulic conductivity, but in transmissivity water flows from a unit width of the aquifer. This is the difference in the hydraulic conductivity and the transmissibility. So, they have relationship. What is the unit? It is expressed in meter square per day. You see, K into B, B is in meter thickness, K into meter per day. So, meter per day into meter equal to meter square per day. So, this is the unit of the transmissibility. Now, next property, fourth property is the storativity. It is also known as coefficient of storage. Volume of water from a unit surface of the area under a unit decline of the component head, which is added to the aquifer or released from the aquifer, is known as storativity or coefficient of storage. So, it is dimensionless ratio, because it is the ratio of volume of water by volume of aquifer. So, volume is volume divided, it is unitless. So, this is a coefficient of, there is a diagram is given which shows the how the coefficient of storage or storativity is determined for the unconfined aquifer and the confined aquifer. It is very well seen from this diagram and very clear to you. Now, I have told you that it is related to the thickness of the aquifer. So, storativity is denoted by letter capital S. So, capital S equal to 3 into 10 to the power minus 6 into B, where B is the saturated thickness of the aquifer and S is the storativity. So, this is about the storativity. This is the fourth. Fifth is the specific retention or specific yield. So, what is specific yield or specific retention? Specific yield is nothing but volume of water drained under gravity to the total volume of rock, that is known as specific yield. Specific yield is denoted by SY. So, SY equal, suppose volume of water is WY divided by capital V. Capital V is the bulk volume of the rock, WY the volume of water which is drained under the gravity. So, this is the SW, this is SY, that is specific yield. Now, specific retention can be defined as it is a volume of retained to the total volume of water in the aquifer. So, SR, it is represented by SR. SR equal to WR, water retained upon capital V. So, V is the bulk volume of the water. So, specific, for I am giving an example, so it will be clear to you. So, suppose a aquifer has a 1000 liter water, simple numerical example I am giving, a aquifer in which there is a storage of 1000 liter water. You have pumped it and you have taken out 800 liter water and 200 liter water remains in it. It means now I will classify this abstraction of water in terms of specific yield, specific retention and porosity. So, porosity becomes 1000 liter. So, porosity equal to specific yield plus specific retention. So, 1000 equal to 800 will be the specific yield which water which you have obtained, and 200 liter will be the specific retention. So, 800 plus 200 equal to 1000. So, porosity equal to specific yield plus specific retention. Term storativity is generally referred to the confined aquifer. Storativity is referred to the confined aquifer, which is equivalent to the unconfined aquifer also. So, a specific yield and specific retention are expressed in percentage just like porosity. Porosity is represented in percentage, specific yield represented in percentage, and specific retention is given in percentage. So, there is a specific yield given by the Morris and Johansen for the every rock type is there. Porosity is also given by the Morris and Johansen in 1967. So, you see that porosity of clay is 42%, porosity of peat is 92%, weathered granite has porosity 45%, basalt has got 17%, shale has got 6%. So, if you see this table, you will find the porosity given by Morris and Johansen. You can use it in the calculation of the porosity, this table. Similarly, table is also given by for the capillary rise of the water in the zone of saturation is there. You can see that table for different type of unconsolidated material, how much capillary rise took place due to the capillary section in the zone of saturation. So, important thing, students are confused with the storativity and the specific yield. Here actual storativity and specific yield are synonymous. Storativity is referred to the confined aquifer, specific yield referred to the unconfined aquifer. This is the only difference, otherwise they are the same. So, this is about the hydrologic properties of the aquifers. So, these are the properties, hydrologic properties of the aquifer, and these properties are very important from the study of the groundwater point of view and from the examination, because students should give the exam. These are very important from the examination point of view. Every time if you see the question paper of the last year or you will go to interview, you will find that every expert is asking about the hydrologic properties of the aquifer. What are they? These are the hydrologic aquifer. Now, we will come to the springs. In the hydrologic cycle, I have told you what is springs, how they are formed. Now, a spring is a concentrated discharge of water appearing on the earth's surface in the form of current of flowing water. This is a definition of the spring. Now, a scientist Beryan in year 1919, he has given a classification of the spring into categories. Number 1, those springs resulted from the non-gravitational forces, those resulted from the gravitational forces. For their classification, the springs are also classified according to the cause of the spring, according to the rock of the spring, according to the discharge of the spring, according to the temperature of the spring. So, according to Brian, what are the non-gravitational springs? Volcanic springs. These are the fissure springs. So, volcanic springs are the non-gravitational force. Thermal springs, you can say they are the gravitational forces resulted from the deep seated conditions. So, gravitational springs are also known as gravity springs, in which there are other type of springs, depression springs, where there is a depression and water table is intersecting with that depression, spring is formed, we will call it depression springs. Artesian springs, suppose artesian conditions are there in the field, if impervious layer, pervious layer, then again impervious layer, and they are dipping, then what will happen? Due to this pressure, water comes on the ground surface, it will become artesian springs. Now, another is springs caused by the solution activities, particularly in the limestone terrain where karst topography form, water enter, just like Chitrakoot. You have seen the water is coming, it is again disappeared, and again if you find it, it will appear on the downstream side about 15-20 kilometer if you search for this. So, this is known as solution springs or tubular springs. Now, springs depends upon the discharge of spring, depends upon the catchment area of the spring. What is the catchment area of the spring? So, you find that some are the seasonal springs, other are the perennial springs. Perennial springs are those from which water emerging throughout the year. The seasonal springs are those water is disappear after the rainy season. These are. So, Menger also this is Brian classification. Menger has classified in the year 1923 on the basis of the discharge of the spring. He has measured the discharge. This is given in the table. If you see the table carefully, there are 8 type of springs, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and discharge is given there. And first spring discharge is greater than 10 cubic meter per second. For eighth, discharge is less than 10 ml milliliter per second. So, this is about the springs. Hydrothermal phenomena. What is the hydrothermal phenomena? Everybody knows that there is a heat in the magma chamber, and heat is from the magma chamber, heat is flowing outward. So, due to hydrothermal phenomena, thermal springs are formed, and thermal springs are associated with the deep seated condition from the greater depth of the earth. So, what are the thermal springs? Thermal springs has slight great temperature, excess temperature than the normal groundwater. So, thermal springs are divided into warm spring and hot springs. Now, what is hydrothermal phenomena? The diagram is given. This diagram is given by Kiefer in the year 1971, and if you see this diagram carefully, there is a cooling magma chamber, and heat is coming out, heat is flowing outward from the chamber, and there is water is descending, water is there, cold water is percolating downward. So, at the depth of about 1500 meter to 3000 meter, what will happen when this heat comes there and this water is heated and the temperature is very great, and then what will happen due to this porosity, permeability of the rock, this water comes towards the ground surface or earth surface in the form of hot water, and through the fissures it will come on the ground surface. So, hot springs appeared on the ground surface. Now, these hot springs, these are the thermal springs, are the very good sources of the geothermal energy. I will tell you later about the geothermal energy sources. Have you heard about the geyser? What is geyser? Geyser is a thermal springs. It comes from the deep seated condition. So, hot springs emerging on the ground surface is known as geysers. Second spring is mud pot. What is mud pot? When there is a little water, this little water is mixed with the clay, it will become muddy water. So, muddy water appear on the ground surface. So, we will call it mud pot. Another spring you have heard about the fumarole. What is fumarole? This is a bird derived from Latin fumus. Fumus means smoke. Means a fumarole spring is nothing but gases are coming from this spring. What type of gases these are? These are the carbon dioxide, these are the hydrogen sulfide H2S, CO2, these are escaping from the. Now, I am giving the best example of the hydrothermal phenomena, that is the Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming in United States. It has 1000 geothermal features, and about 6 lakh years ago the volcanic eruption took place there, and nowadays at present below 300 meter depth from the ground surface, the temperature of water is 240 degrees centigrade. You can imagine a water temperature at 240 degrees centigrade. This is very hot water we are getting in the Yellowstone National Park at the depth of about 300 meter. So, now these geothermal phenomena or the thermal springs occurs throughout the world, particularly in the New Zealand, in the Iceland, they are in the western United States. So, this is about the hydrothermal phenomena. Another important, because we are related to hydrothermal phenomena, geothermal energy sources are very important. We should not forget about the geothermal energy here, because we are studying the hydrothermal phenomena. So, what are the geothermal energy? I have told you that heat is flowing outward from the cooling magma chamber. So, what is the flow rate of this heat? It is flowing at the rate of 1 point into 10 to the power minus 6 calorie per centimeter square per second at the average gradient of 1 degree centigrade per 50 meter. This is the average geothermal gradient. The heat is flowing. So, actually this geothermal energy source there is a tremendous heat, particularly in those areas where volcanic activity took place near the ground surface. So, these tremendous reservoir of heat should be utilized as a geothermal energy sources. And suppose the heating water can be directly heat water, that is up to 50 degree or 80 degree centigrade, which is found below the ground surface at the shallow depth, can be directly used for the heating purposes. So, there are 4 types: low temperature field and high temperature field. Now, what is dry? Dry means where their permeability of the rocks is less and groundwater is reaching in the less quantity. So, when water is in the less quantity, what will happen? Due to heat, all water will be vaporized, that will come in the form of stream. What is dry? Dry means where there is a tremendous groundwater is reaching towards the heat. So, there is a mixture of the heat water and gases are there. So, this is known as wet dry field. Low temperature field means where temperature occurs about 50 degree to 80 degree centigrade at the shallow depth. This water can be utilized as an energy source. And high temperature field where the temperature is increasing from 200 degree centigrade to 500 degree centigrade. I have given the example of the National Yellowstone Park, where you are getting the, today also at present we are getting 240 degree centigrade temperature of the water at 3 meter depth. And there are, so this energy in our country also, geothermal energy should be utilized in the Himalayan region. We are getting the hot springs. Now, there are power plant, geothermal energy power plant, which are situated in Italy, they are situated in New Zealand, they are situated in western United States, where this geothermal energy sources are utilized in the for generation of the electricity and other usual heating purposes. So, the study of geothermal energy is very important. It is a very good energy which is available below the earth surface, and there is notable plant of geothermal energy sources situated in Italy, in New Zealand and the western United States. So, today I have told you in the second part about the aquifers, given the example to you, about the hydrologic properties of the groundwater, which are very important. We should know about this. These are useful in the calculation of the groundwater flow studies. They are very useful in the well hydraulics. And about the springs. What are the springs? What are the types of the springs? What are the thermal springs? What is the hydrothermal phenomena? This is all about the second part of the occurrence of the groundwater. Thank you very much.